Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings is a film that's literally based around the title of the film. It's about the Ten Rings lore and history, and then it's about Shang-Chi, his family, his friends, and their whole lineage. And I was actually pleasantly surprised. This is a Disney and Marvel film that is actually an excellent film. This is hands down the best film from Marvel since, I'd say, Deadpool 2. There are a couple America hating jokes where you can just tell Disney just hates America, and doesn't really make sense since Disney is based in America. But outside of that, this is actually a well-made, very well-written film. It tells stories about the main villain, the main character, his family especially, and even his friends. There are plenty of jokes in it. There are plenty of serious moments. This film doesn't exactly take itself to the extreme for seriousness. There are serious moments in Shang-Chi, levied with some funny moments that are meshed in and blended, and I believe they're done very well. The best thing about Shang-Chi that I can say is its storytelling. The way that they wrote the story and the way that they narrated it and actually directed it and edited it together, it actually flows very nicely. Shang-Chi, it's not perfect. This is not a perfect film. This is technically another generic Marvel-made film, but with the exception of it's incredibly well made, it's incredibly well acted. There are only slight parts of this film that I didn't like, mainly just a couple woke America hating jokes. But otherwise, this is an excellent film. Shang-Chi is so much better made than Black Widow. And I believe that this is what Black Panther wanted to be. The problem with Black Panther was it was so woke and in support of black people that it was just berating white people every chance that it got. In Shang-Chi, I'm glad that they use different races, and I'm glad that it's very diverse. It actually fits well with the story. It fits well with the region, the locations, the environments, and everything as well, visually and aesthetically. Everything looks great. Now, as far as the plotting goes, there was one part in the story and the plotting that kind of demersed me, if that's a word, and that was that there was a part in the first part of Shang-Chi where they talk about the lore of getting to this one place, and it only opens and it only gets you there once a year, and then that happens. And then later on, they do that same thing, and I literally was in the theater, and I said out loud, I questioned it, and I said, but wait, they just said that only does that once a year, but then they're doing that, another person is doing that for a second time, literally in a day's worth of time. Other than that, I don't really have many other gripes for the story. The absolute only gripes I have about Shang-Chi is, yes, generic Marvel story, but it has a lot more depth and a lot more care in the writing for the story and the characters. You actually feel for every character involved. You even feel for the creatures in the film. You feel for the enemies, the villains. Even though the villains' storylines are generic, they are very well done and very well written. You can't really do much more in, say, for example, in the Marvel universe. They've written and done so many movies and stories where, yes, the story has been generically overlapping one another for how many years now? Okay, it was fresh in the first Iron Man up until the Avengers. Set aside Avengers Infinity War, which is one of the greatest films in the Marvel universe, and the Deadpools, of course. Nobody can hate those. Even if you don't like that kind of black humor, you still can't hate it. It's a different kind of film. But Shang-Chi is kind of actually up there with the likes of Iron Man, Deadpool, and Infinity War. Black Widow was way down here, with the only exception being its excellently made intro credits. Shang-Chi is up here alongside Infinity War, Deadpool, Deadpool 2, Iron Man just being a little bit higher on the pedestal for me. And that's really only because Shang-Chi was made, 11, 12 years later than Iron Man, and 4 years after Infinity War. But if Shang-Chi had released in 2008 or the early 2010s, I would hands down praise it completely for being original and completely fresh. But right now, it's mostly original and fresh and well written. That's the key part of Shang-Chi. This is a very well written film that actually centers and involves you around all of the characters involved. You're immersed in the environments, you're immersed in the world, you're immersed in the history, you are immersed in the characters and why they're fighting, what they're doing, why they're doing what. They backtrack, and they do it very well in flashbacks and whatnot to give you explanations and exposition for why people are so motivated for these certain things. And normally I'm against flashbacks. I am a direct storyteller in that you should show ambiguity where, say, a ring has history, and when somebody dies from it, I feel that the camera should just linger on the ring on their hand, for example, and just kind of let you ambiguously interpret the meaning behind it. But Shang-Chi does the opposite, and it actually fills you in on what people did in the past and why they're doing what they're doing now. And I actually really enjoyed that aspect of the storytelling in Shang-Chi. There are some predictable moments, but this is the 26,000th Marvel film to have been released. You can't really expect too many twists and turns, although there are a couple. There are a couple decent twists and turns. And visuals, audio, excellent. I don't watch 3D, but I could tell that there were some 3D moments, and that's the thing about Marvel films too. Yeah, they're shot and filmed in 3D, and you can tell that they can be watched in 3D, but they don't force the storytelling around the 3D. It's more so the opposite. The 3D is forced around the storytelling, and that's what I do love about Marvel films. So overall for me, yet again, just a little bit of writing in Shang-Chi that drops it down a little just because of just a couple woke I hate America jokes from Disney. But otherwise, you should go watch Shang-Chi. Try to get a refund for Black Widow. Take that money if you can get it back. Go watch Shang-Chi. This film is excellent for Marvel standards. And yes, that the bar is set low at this point for Marvel standards because every Marvel film is made well, but usually shitty. But Shang-Chi is not that. Shang-Chi is made extremely well, and at bare bones, it's generic, but it's not generic. It's actually a little above generic because of the well-written story and the direction and the editing and how they made the film. So Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings for me is a 7 out of 10. Thank you.